Holly hangs across the mantel. Cinnamon and orange tangle with the aroma of evergreen and the tinkling of piano keys with the music of laughter. Soon a chorus of untrained voices chime with the melody of Here We Come a-wassailing. Someone has started a caroling circle in the next room, it seems. As you busily survey the food table, clearing up empty serving dishes and uncovering new trays of hors d'oeuvres and baked goods, you hum along with the merry singers. For the first time since you arrived in this part of the country, the house is abuzz with people, activity, and palpable human energy. And though you are occupied with the frenzy of a first-time host entertaining a surprising amount of people, you do your duties cheerfully, grateful for the newfound community. Covenshire House, this venerable country estate, was left to you a few years ago in your uncle's will. It came as a surprise. You'd always liked the solitary fellow who brought the most exquisite gifts to family Christmas parties and had kind, crinkly eyes you remember well. But it wasn't as if you were terribly close. But the more you've come to learn about him since you came to live here, the more you've realized that perhaps, given his reclusive tendencies, you were in fact one of his closest and most cherished relatives. He saw something in you, you suppose, that seemed to fit in with the eccentric and sometimes extraordinary nature of the Covenshire estate and its surrounding landscape. For this, you've acquired a profound gratitude. You've spent the better part of 2 years restoring the house to, or at least near, its former splendor. Initially, you had thought to sell the place once it was in shape, but the more time you spent here, the more it came to feel like your home, like it was always your home. And in the bones of the land, these beautiful and ancient hills, you've felt stirrings of magic and wonder, the kind of wonder that's rare and usually only accessible to children adventuring through their woods and neighborhoods, looking for evidence of fairies. But living by yourself in such an enormous estate, even kept company by your beloved horse, Winifred, can be a lonely affair. In recent months, you've endeavored to get yourself out of the house and into the community. Sometimes that's merely a trip to the market. Other times that means bringing some of the more peculiar artifacts you've found around the house to the antiques dealer, speculating together over the items. And lately you've sought to embed yourself more in community spaces, even joining a book club and taking long walks or horseback rides with local wildlife enthusiasts. It's brought you immense satisfaction, further planting your roots here. Perhaps more than anything, more than the awe-inspiring countryside or the welcoming community, what keeps you here at Covenshire is the unending curiosity. Since moving in, you've had a number of experiences that can't be easily explained. You've brushed up against beings and forces you have no other word for than magic. Especially at times of transition, within the year. The summer and winter solstices, the changing of the seasons, when the world seems to hum with liminality. You rarely speak of these strange occurrences to others, not for fear that they might not believe you. In fact, there's an unspoken twinkle in the eyes of folks around here that suggests familiarity and comfort with the unknown, but out of a sense of sanctity. The things you've seen, a sacred circle in the heart of the nearby woods, visions of the past and future through the pages of an old book, and a Christmas visit from a medieval pageant wagon. They all felt intensely personal, sightings meant for you and you alone. A part of you longs to discover the causes and connections of these uncanny encounters, wants to put it all together like pieces of a puzzle. But another part enjoys simply dancing in the mystery, never knowing what wondrous thing may happen next. Tonight is the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. Through all the preparations of the day and all the festivities of the evening, you've felt something of a prickling, a thinness to the atmosphere, a sparkle. Uncovering a tray of homemade pastries brought by a neighbor and turning to go into the other room where voices trill and laugh, you almost trip over a blur of fawn and white fur, which disappears as quickly as it came with the jingle of tags. Then another comes waddling and panting behind it. The Welsh corgis, Ness and Poppy. A moment later, their owner comes dashing in behind them. "I'm sorry," says Carrie, out of breath, scooping up the slow one in her arms. You can't help but laugh at the little dog's face, split like a grin with her tongue hanging jovially out. "I tried to keep them out of the way of the food," she says. "Ness went that way, I suppose." You respond in the affirmative and chuckle as Carrie heads toward the drawing room, where a cry of laughter indicates that Ness is getting up to more mischief. This party has seemed to attract the most agreeable kind of chaos, you think. The kind that's rosy-cheeked, musical of voice, and plump with sweets and pies. Joy permeates this place. So you follow Carrie into the room, where now echo the sweet strains of the holly and the ivy. The great fir tree towers in the corner of the room, trimmed with red ribbon, twinkling lights, and bright, reflective baubles. David, the town bookseller, is seated at the piano, tickling the ivories with elegant flourishes. He's encircled by 5 or 6 of your guests in their finest holiday sweaters, all belting out their favorite carols. Other guests lounge on the sofas and armchairs, grazing on cheese cubes and biscuits from paper plates. Carrie stands with her partner Gwen a few paces from the piano, a corgi under each arm, as they admire the music. Candles flicker about the room, lending it a nostalgic light. The whole tableau might be out of a Victorian Christmas card. You're so pleased to be the one responsible for all this, the coziness, the camaraderie, You can hardly think of a finer way to spend the winter solstice, the longest night. On the chime of the hour, you tap a metal spoon against your glass to bring the party to a hush. The guests all turn to you. It's time, you explain, for what you hope will be a new tradition. Rather than a gift exchange or any elaborate game, you've asked your guests if they're willing and able to bring something with which to adorn the tree, something you hope that has meaning to each individual. Your suggestion was met with enthusiasm as guests RSVP'd, and now you're excited to see what they've brought. One by one, and sometimes two by two, your guests approach the twinkling fir tree, bearing their small offerings. A young couple you recently befriended share an ornament bearing the name of their firstborn in celebration of her first Christmas. The baby herself is here, sleeping soundly in a sling against her mother's chest. A friend of yours, who makes and sells her jewelry in town, drapes the fir needles with a simple gold chain on which hang a few colorful glass beads. They catch the light and sparkle there. David, the bookseller and unexpectedly skilled pianist, offers a rolled sheet of paper tied with black ribbon, a note he once found lodged in a second-hand book of poetry from a mother to her son. More simple gifts follow, trinkets and tokens of the human experience, expressions of love, labor, and friendship. You are warmed by the gestures of your friends, who so freely share their hearts and stories. When every item has found its place on the boughs of the tree, you all stand back to admire the final picture. You imagine the same scene several years from now, with friends old and new placing this year's offerings on an empty branch, everyone reflecting on years' worth of material memory among the tinsel and lights. You offer a few words of gratitude to your guests for their thoughtful offerings and for their sheer presence tonight. You finish with a toast. All raise their glasses and their voices in cheer and community. Over the next hour or so, the party begins to wind down. Guests trickle out a few at a time, while others hang around to admire what you've done with the old house. This gathering serves a few purposes, it seems. It's a celebration of the season, a get-together of people who genuinely enjoy each other, and a bit of an open house for the Covenshire estate. In the later years, your uncle kept so to himself that no one set foot in the place in ages. The folks who've lived in the area for some time are particularly impressed by your work in the grand ballroom and library, where you've restored furniture and refinished the floors. Next year, you hope to hold a much more decadent affair, with some help from neighbors, perhaps even taking over the ballroom for a Yuletide masquerade. Soon, however, the energy wanes, and the last of your party guests begin to drag. To your great appreciation, Carrie, Gwen, and David volunteer to stick around and help you clean up. You try to insist that it's no trouble, but inwardly it warms your heart to have their help and company. Together you pack away the leftovers and snuff out the candles, pick up bits of tinsel and straighten the throw pillows. A fuzzy exhaustion begins to creep over you. With all the preparation, you've been up since the wee, dark hours of the morning, and as joyous as the occasion was, your social battery is somewhat drained from entertaining all evening. You feel infinitely ready to slow down and relax. Still, a twinge of sadness tugs at you with the thought of the last 3 guests leaving. Over the last year, you've come to find a close kinship with them, all in different ways. They're the kind of people whose company recharges you, boosts your spirit. Now is the first time you've all 4 been together. So, with the house as close to rights as it can be tonight, you suggest they stay for a nightcap or a cup of tea to unwind. Your comrades are thrilled with the notion. So you put the kettle on and light a fire in the grand fireplace in the sitting room. The flames crackle and pop, reflecting against the glass of the large front window. Pulling the curtains aside to admire the view of the landscape at night, you notice light flurries of snow falling in the dark. Your friends join you, settling into chairs and sofas. Even the corgis, their energy at last expended, curl up to rest beside the fireplace. Over tea and mulled wine, you reflect together on the wonderful success of the party, how gleeful the atmosphere was, and how good the house looks. You beam with pride. And in the warmth of the hearth, the conversation sweeps past pleasantries into the kind of comfortable rapport common among old friends. You recall aloud your first time meeting Carrie while out for a ride by the lakes. She was standing knee-deep in the shallows, her jeans rolled up, gathering fistfuls of watermint. She introduced herself as the Lady of the Lake, you say. I had potions to brew, Carrie laughs. But that is what some people call me, I swear. No one calls you that but you, chides Gwen, who then adds with a smile, but it suits you. Especially after last spring, Carrie says knowingly. At this, you and David share a look of curiosity, then both turn back to Carrie. Last spring, David says. What happened last spring? Carrie's face lights up as if she's delighted to have the opportunity to tell this story. She crosses her legs and leans forward a bit. If I'm going to tell it, she says in a hushed tone, I need you to keep an open mind. Everything I'm about to say really happened, I promise. I'm not out of my mind. Well, Gwen interjects jokingly, and she's met with a playful shove by Carrie. The fire plays across the sitting room floor, snow falling swiftly outside the window, and Carrie begins her tale. It was March, very close to the vernal equinox, if not the night itself. Gwen was off in Cheshire for a retreat, so I was home alone with the dogs. And I remember it was a full moon, A supermoon, I think, because I caught sight of it through the kitchen window while I was washing up. It was so enormous and orange. I had to go outside and get a proper look at it. Our house is a stone's throw away from the lake, and on a clear night, it's just gorgeous. So I decided to go out to the shore. But when I got there, it wasn't such a clear night after all. There was a heavy mist that seemed to have suddenly rolled in, just floating over the surface of the lake. Not a cloud in the sky, just this mist. So I could see the moon overhead, so big I could have reached out and touched it. But I could also see its reflection, not on the water, but on the mist. This glowy golden ether swirling there on the lake's surface. It was hypnotic, really. I couldn't pull myself away. But then as I watched, frozen there and mesmerized, the moon's reflection began to change. It started to coalesce, to come together into something denser than mist, something solid. I watched as it gradually took on the shape of a woman made out of mist, standing there in the center of the lake, her feet resting right on the surface of the water. I couldn't make out her features just yet because of all the mist, but I could see her silhouette, clear as day. Then slowly, the mist cleared, little by little, leaving her there in the middle of the lake. She looked like she was made out of moonlight, all pearly and gleaming. Her hair was white, though I couldn't tell her age. She seemed ageless, really, venerable and wise, and also youthful and light. I felt utterly and completely at peace in her presence. No fear, no apprehension, as if the glow she radiated was warming me through, comforting me. And then I noticed the raft. I hadn't seen it before, perhaps because of the mist, but there was a little raft bobbing there by the shore. It seemed like a sign, so I climbed onto the raft, untied it, and rowed out to meet her there. I remember she was barefoot when she touched down on the raft before me, and she was radiant, so beautiful it was difficult to look directly at her, but I couldn't look away. I thought she must be a fairy woman or a goddess. Being beside her was nourishing somehow, like she was filling me up with energy. I felt compelled to say something to her, but I wasn't sure what to say. So I told her my name. She smiled and nodded, as if she already knew. Then she leaned toward me and whispered something in my ear. Don't ask me what she said. It might have been a different language, for all I know, but I don't remember it. But at the moment she said it, I had a feeling of absolute contentment wash over me, a sense that everything was going to be all right, but also that I had been given a mission, a purpose I couldn't yet articulate. I wanted to ask her questions, to learn more about this unknowable purpose she'd endowed me with, but she had vanished. That's when I realized how cold the night was, still on the verge of spring. So I rowed back to shore and hurried into the house to warm up. The next morning, I woke up much later than I normally do, and Gwenny was already back. She came in with breakfast and asked me what I'd done in the front garden. I didn't know what she was talking about, so I followed her out there. And on the edge of the garden, out of nowhere, there was a sapling. I hadn't planted it, but there it was, with silver bark and budding branches. I'd never seen a tree like it before. I've just had this feeling ever since that the tree is somehow connected to my encounter with the woman of the lake, the fairy, or whatever she was. Like I've been tasked with caring for this tree, for her. I've gone back to the lake night after night since, just to look out and see if she returns, so I can ask her what I'm meant to do. I haven't seen her yet, nor have I seen that raft again, but I have looked after the tree. I'm certain there's something special about it. In fact, it bore fruit this past season. Apples, but the strangest, most beautiful apples you can imagine. One side yellowy golden as the sun, and the other a whitish silver like the moon, like the lady of the lake. There's a crackling silence as Carrie finishes her tale. You feel a shiver of synchronicity. It seems you're not the only one here who's experienced the unexplained. So, your nightly sojourns to the shore, David speaks first, his eyes bright. That's why some people call you the Lady of the Lake. It's all right if you don't believe me, Carrie says, leaning back against the cushions. No, that's not it at all, David says hurriedly. I do believe you. This part of the country is rife with stories like yours. Really? You chime in. David, ever knowledgeable and well-read, begins to speak about the fascinating history and folklore of the region. Not far from Covenshire, as you know, is an Iron Age hill fort. Here, legend has it, a king tried to build his castle, but the foundations repeatedly crumbled until a young boy, gifted with prophecy, divined that beneath the hill, two dragons were locked in unending battle. This conflict kept the castle's construction at bay. That young boy was Merlin. And only a short distance yonder, there are the abbey ruins, a locus of so many legends. One of David's favorite stories tells of a monk who resided in the abbey in the 12th century. One night at dusk, there came the song of a nightingale, which was so sweet, so entrancing, that the monk followed the music out into the forest. After a time, the song ceased, and the monk had not yet found its source. So he returned to the abbey. But despite having been gone for what felt like minutes, he found the place in ruins, as if he'd been away for centuries. I've seen things too, things I thought no one would believe, David says. But you and your company urge him to share, and you listen with rapt attention as he begins his own tale. I had finished closing the bookshop one evening. This was a handful of years ago, and I was on my way home through the town square. I live close enough to walk to and from the shop. It was a mild night in late summer, and I decided to take my time on the way home. When you've lived in the same place for as long as I have, I suppose it's easy to take for granted the beauty around you, the little curiosities. I stopped here and there in the waning sunlight to admire the intricate details of a wrought iron gate or the decorative drain covers and the like. Well, I took a moment to visit the fountain in the square. The way the sunset was hitting the water, it was casting these beautiful rainbows in the spray. And there were children and families about, some of them tossing wishing coins into the water. But as I looked into the pool, I saw something so unusual, so wondrous. I thought at first I must be dreaming. Instead of the stone bottom of the fountain pool, which I'd seen so many times before, it was like I was looking through glass, through a window, into another world. There, below the surface of the water, was a city. Streets and alleyways, and churches and fountains. So very like the town in which I was standing, but older and fringed with a golden haze. I looked to those others who played near the fountain, but no one else seemed stricken with the same vision. I knew it might make me look like a fool, but I reached in with one hand to touch the surface of the water, just to see if I could reach that strange subterranean city. But as soon as my fingers disturbed the water, the ripples washed the vision away. I left, thinking I must have imagined it, that it was only the angle of the light and the reflection of the buildings in the square playing tricks on me. I carried on as normal and all but forgot, until several months later, when I saw the city again. This time, however, it wasn't in the fountain. I had family visiting, and I took them to see the ruins of the abbey, actually. There was snow on the ground that day, but the sun was shining, one of those pleasantly crisp winter mornings. And as we were strolling around the ruins, I wandered in one direction while my family were observing the colonnades. The sun came streaming through what remains of the tracery in the grand archway, and I swear it was as if, through that doorway, there shined the other place. I could just make out, through the blinding golden light, a winding alley lined with structures. It seemed to call out to me, inviting me in, and I wanted to go. But just then, I heard my name, and I turned round to see my family waving me over. When I looked back at the archway, the city had vanished again. Sometimes I wonder if I missed my chance to pass through the portal, or if I really did only imagine it. But deep down, I believe I'll see the doorway again. I'm not sure where or when, but I'll find my way to the other place one day. As David concludes his story, your eyes drift to the frostwork on the window pane, where your imagination etches a map onto the burgeoning ice crystals, now illuminated in the glow of firelight. You can see in your mind's eye the shining lake where Carrie's goddess touched down, the garden where a silver apple tree now grows, the town square where the fountain flickered with a sunken city, the bookshop where David pores over volumes of lore, the ruins of an abbey where nightingales sing, an Iron Age hill fort, home of dragons, the wild wood where you once witnessed the turning of the wheel of the year. Your inner gaze draws curved lines connecting the locations, settling into spirals, 3 spirals connected at the center. And there at the center of this map is Covenshire House. Something more than a fire in the hearth is crackling now within this room. There is new kinship forged here, a network of invisible cities, beings, stories, binding you all together. It was more than good fortune that brought you to cross paths with these fellows, you think. There was something of fate in it, too. You can feel it now, that with the people in this room, on this dark night, you'll learn to navigate the unseen worlds, those fairy realms and echoes of history that seem to slide in and out of focus for you, with Covenshire House at the heart of it all. Snow tumbles softly beyond the pane, gathering and dancing in the darkness. Midnight approaches, the axis of the year. It's far too late to send your comrades home through the whistling dark, and the empty country house has rooms to spare. But there won't be much sleep tonight, you think, for there are 1,000 tales left to tell and secrets left to spill. There are mysteries in every corner of Covenshire. There are hidden realms on every page of every book in the Grand Library. This place, this magical house that called to you across land and sea, extends its fairy reach, its spiral arms, and gathers up stories. Only you can say what will come in the next chapter. Will you step through the archway? Tend the sacred tree. Weave the spell of friendship in elegant, rotational symmetry. Tonight, as the old year dies and the seeds of the new are sown, as holly and oak king reenact their ancient battle for the season, as the sun sleeps, ready to wake brighter tomorrow. Tonight, something begins. The snow, the falling snow, passes through tracery, waltzing between the notes of nightingale song. The pine boughs shiver, and the lake's surface trembles and glows under silent moon. Deeply, sweetly, the land sings its legends through you and your friends, a new fellowship, a new community, a new circle. There's fervor in the streets, the melodic ring of people's voices lightly singing their Merry Christmases and Happy Holidayses. Holly and evergreen deck every doorway, red ribbons tied on every lamppost, every window lightly frosted. The scents of bayberry, orange, and spices float on the sweeping breeze, all tangled up with the pealing of bells and laughter. Little noses and cheeks glow rosy in the cold. The air is thick with the chilly anticipation of the long night and morning to come. In all this splendid energy, it can be no other day but Christmas Eve. And there's nowhere you'd rather be on Christmas Eve than right here in the bustling corridor of Surrey Alley, where every shop is a magic shop and witches and wizards come to buy their wares. You savor the feel of the cobblestones beneath your feet, the cold air on your face. You stay close to your best friend Brom so you don't lose each other in the crowds. Though you're on holiday from the School of Sorcery, you both still don your cloaks bearing the school insignia, half out of pride and half because they're the thickest, warmest cloaks you own. But underneath the cloaks, you wear cable-knit Christmas sweaters, handmade by Brahm's mother for each of you. It was a kind gesture for her to include you in that family tradition. You and Brahm could be siblings in your matching attire. Now that you're of age, you're excited to venture to Surrey Alley on your own. There's something so gleeful about coming by yourselves with your own gold to spend. A delicious sort of freedom in this wonderland of endless delights. And Surrey Alley does not disappoint at Yuletide. The hidden promenade, tucked away behind London's Covent Garden, behind a magic veil that only those in the know can pass through, is positively alive with joy and cheer. There are carolers on the corners and floating baubles in the sky above the street, as though in search of a Christmas tree to hang themselves on. Snow coats the rooftops of the little crowded shops and cafes like powdered sugar, making them look like frosted gingerbread buildings. Tiny icicles shine like diamonds from awnings and eaves. With so much excitement and such delights round every corner, you feel almost overwhelmed. But Brahm nudges your arm and gestures off to the left, where you spot the famous bookshop, Bob and Wheel Books. Good idea, you say, as the two of you weave through the throngs to the bookshop's entrance. The real mission today is to gather up last-minute Christmas presents for some of your friends and family. Your other best friend, Violet, who's spending the holiday with her parents in Australia, is an avid bookworm. So Bob and Wheel is the perfect place to locate a gift for her. A bell rings on the door as you step inside from the street. Immediately, a rush of warmth falls over you after the blustery cold of the alley. You haven't set foot in this bookshop since your first year at the School of Sorcery, as you've opted to have your school textbooks delivered ever since. But the familiar smell of leather-bound books, vanilla, and coffee bring back all sorts of childhood memories. You think of how timid you were the first time you shopped here, how much you've grown in the intervening years. The bookshop, by some enchantment, is larger on the inside than it appears from without. Rather than a narrow red brick building with 2 stories, it's a cavernous space with spiral staircases and magical lifts that go to countless floors, each holding a vast inventory of books on certain subjects. It's busy with customers flipping through pages, carrying stacks of volumes, or watching their Christmas gifts wrap themselves in neat little packages. You and Brahm split up to track down presents for Violet. She has a voracious appetite for books, so the real challenge isn't finding something she'll like, but finding something she hasn't yet read. As Brahm disappears up a stairway toward the section on plant and herb lore, you step on a hovering platform and say clearly, "Magical history." The platform begins to slowly convey you upward, past stacks of books, toward your chosen floor. You watch the customers and shopkeepers grow smaller as you drift up. Clerks follow customers around, scrolls of parchment floating behind them, scribbled upon by quills that move independently. Even years after your initiation into the secret world of magic and sorcery, such a sight still makes you swoon with delight. The lift comes to a halt at the history floor, which is peaceful and quiet compared to the main thoroughfare. You suppose history books aren't most people's idea of a thrilling Christmas gift, but you can understand the appeal. They're a window into the great mysteries, movements of people and ideas across time. You wind your way through the stacks of books, reading the lettering on the spines, biographies of great witches and wizards, monographs on magical empires. The choices are seemingly endless. But as you round a corner, you find a small display table of books with brightly colored binding and covers. It's a whole collection of books by a celebrated magical historian, all reissued with beautiful designs and gold-trimmed pages. You pick one up, open the cover, and feel the spine pleasantly crackle in your hands. It's the exhaustive history of the School of Sorcery, founded centuries ago by Merlin himself. You think of Violet, whose own copy of this book is second-hand, tattered and worn from poring over it again and again. Edges frayed, pages falling out, gold lettering faded on the cover. There's a certain charm about that old book, but you have to imagine she'd appreciate the opportunity to set it upon the shelf and crack open a beautiful new copy. There are full-color illustrations within that move and wink as you flip through. It's a beautiful addition. You tuck it under your arm, feeling light and cheerful as you return to the lift. You wish you could see her face tomorrow morning when she opens the package and sees the beautiful cover and the image of the renowned wizard smiling back at her. You rendezvous with Brahm in the checkout line, which snakes through the bookshelves behind the register. The shop echoes with happy chatter as you slowly inch toward the front of the line. Brahm has selected a book of magical herbs and their uses in healing and medicine. It's full of elegant botanical sketches and even has pages for the reader to fill out with their notes and experiments. At the register, the smiling clerk offers to gift wrap your items and ship them directly to the recipient. You watch as a shining red ribbon ties itself round the book of history, and you scribble a short note for Violet. Then the clerk drops both books into a small cabinet and closes the door. You hear a sound like the tinkling of bells and see a puff of silver smoke rise from the cabinet. And you know the books have been instantly transported to Violet's door. You leave Bob and Wheel books as light as you came in, but with a wave of relief, knowing you've crossed such an important person off your Christmas gift list. The sun is starting to set on Surrey Alley, and lamps are springing to life around you. The dim, late afternoon brings a new surge of cold over you. You shiver as you move down the alley with the flow of the crowd. Brahm's teeth are chattering, and the two of you agree to duck into the first place you can find to procure some hot drinks. As luck would have it, you're only steps from Pepper's Pies and Potions, a cafe that may look shabby from the outside, but makes the most delicious pasties and drinks. You step in off the street, relieved to see it's not mobbed with patrons. The owner, Pepper herself, is behind the bar, slinging drinks for the few customers at tables. You order hand pies to snack on and peruse the menu of winter drinks. There's hot mulled cider, hot chocolate with every flavor imaginable from peppermint to lavender, and Pepper's famous mystery potion. You've never tried the mystery potion before, afraid to go out on a limb when more familiar options are available. But everyone you know who's tried it has described it differently. Pepper claims the drink transforms to please the taste buds of the drinker at the moment it's drunk. Today you're feeling adventurous. You and Brahm both order the mystery potion. When he takes his first sip, Brahm's eyes light up. It tastes like hot buttered rum, with a sprinkling of cinnamon and something like cardamom. Brahm exclaims that he didn't even know he liked cardamom until now. You take a cautious sip of yours, and immediately you feel it warm you from the inside. The taste is hard to describe. It's somehow herbal and sweet, delicate and strongly spiced. It makes your throat tingle and your head feel clear and bright. You struggle to decide what it reminds you of, but your mind fills with childhood memories and broken images of Christmases past. You thank Pepper for the delicious refreshments and breeze back out the door, drinks warming your hands. Your cheeks flush as you meet the cold, but it can't break through the spell of warmth cast by the mystery potions. The lamps burn bright with flickering gas flames, and the lit-up shops lining the alley look like miniature buildings in a Victorian Christmas snow globe. There's another gift you and Brom need to find on this trip to Surrey Alley, and this one must be especially heartfelt. You're looking for something for Brom's mother, who has graciously opened her home to you for the past 6 Christmases. She's as dear to you as your own family, a generous woman who makes every room she enters feel like home. So off you traipse down the cobbled alley, inhaling the sugary, spicy fragrances that waft from the doors of cafes. You carry your drinks in takeout cups, feeling the warmth against your own hands and warming you from the inside out with each sip. A quartet of carols trill a sweet song. You catch 1 or 2 lines of lyric which describe a magical Yule bonfire that burned for the whole month of December, long, long ago. There's a line out the door at the apothecary, a tiny shop that sells cauldrons, potions, and magical ingredients. You spot a friend from school in the line, waiting with a small group of people who must be her family, as they all sport nearly identical button noses and sparkling green eyes. You and Brom give her a cheerful wave as you pass by. You peek briefly into a shop called Sight and Seer, a dimly lit boutique that sells crystal balls, scrying glasses, casting runes, oracle decks, and other supplies for the arts of divination and prophecy. The shop smells of sage and incense, and a faint haze seems to float in the air around you as you explore the displays. While the objects certainly pique your interest, you aren't sure anything here will do for Brom's mother. There's a ginger cat winding its way under table legs, and it chirps merrily as it rubs against your leg. You stoop to give the cat a friendly scratch on the head. Back on the street, Brom nudges you to go with him into the hat shop, Bettina's Best, intrigued by their window display. Behind the glass is a charming tableau featuring mannequins made of snow, modeling increasingly elaborate hats and hair accessories. You give Brom a smirk, and he insists he's heard his mother lamenting the state of her old hats. This shop must have just the thing to delight her. So you stumble inside out of the cold. As Brom heads for the classic witches' hats, you marvel at the more extravagant headwear on display. There's a fascinator made of realistic butterflies, flapping their iridescent wings, a headscarf made of black fabric that shimmers like the night sky riddled with stars. Brom selects a pointed witch's cap in the traditional style, made festive by a decorative sprig of holly. He asks earnestly if you think she'll like it. You reassure him that it's just perfect. But you still aren't sure what to get for her. How do you say, with only a small gift, how thankful you are for a person's hospitality? how lucky you are to be welcomed into the family. Now a flush of blue evening casts its veil over the shopping corridor of Surrey Alley. You're coming to the end of the main drag of shops, but you haven't yet given up hope. After all, there's a little square just ahead where a magical Christmas market has sprung up around the great festive tree. You can see the tree now, a great spruce stretching high into the darkening sky, at least 20 meters tall and towering over even the tallest of structures around. The chime of a clock tower suggests that it's already 5:30. There's plenty of time to get a good vantage point to watch the tree lighting ceremony. A spiral of snow flurries are falling delicately around you, melting as they reach the cobblestones. As you approach the square, your heart flutters. Little wooden stalls, roofs dusted with blankets of snow, encircle the tree. Food stalls sell hot pastries rolled in sugar and cinnamon, steaming sausages, and fresh salted pretzels. Mulled wine and hot cider flow. Vendors sell handmade items and wares, rustic wands, unique broomsticks, pottery, candles, paintings, and hand-carved marionettes. You and Brahm amble round the perimeter, eyeing the marvelous toys, gifts, and magic supplies for sale. You can't remember ever feeling so charmed as you do now. It's as though you've stepped into a Christmas card. And as you weave through the stalls, admiring watercolor paintings of Surrey Alley through the seasons, paintings with leaves or snow or rain that really falls before your eyes, or gasping at exquisitely made garments, you keep your eyes peeled for a special gift, for a very special person. You know it as soon as your eyes fall upon it. You don't say anything, but you begin to drift effortlessly toward the tiny stall. Brahm has to hasten back to catch up with you after realizing you're no longer by his side. There's nothing so magical about it, really. But something about it catches your eye, captures your heart, and doesn't let go. Behind the stall's birchwood counter sits a small, middle-aged woman, bent over something in her hands, which move with a careful, deliberate activity. All around her, on the counter, on shelves behind her, on floating shelves and hanging from the ceiling, are hand-carved wooden nutcrackers, each unique and unalike as snowflakes. There must be hundreds of them, every size, color, shape, and style. Some are classic, some minimalistic, some flamboyant, and some fantastical, each alluring in its own way. And from what you can tell, there's nothing inherently magical about them, but their charm is undeniable. The maker sits there carving away, not noticing you just over the counter, with an expression of peaceful concentration. She looks miles and miles away, unobservant of all the hustle and bustle around her. The snow could be coming down in droves, you think, and she might not look up from her work, so consumed is she by focus. There's one nutcracker among the hundreds that you're drawn to. It's small enough to fit in your hand, you think, and it hangs from a red ribbon on a hook within the stall. It might hang nicely on a modest Christmas tree. This nutcracker is intricately carved and hand-painted in shade after shade of green. Around its arms twist tiny vines of decorative ivy, and holly leaves and berries stick out of its white beard. It wears a crown of holly too, and a cape of luxurious green velvet trimmed with fur. As small as it is, it looks regal and impressive. Somehow you have no eyes for the other items in the stall. This one alone calls out to you. You approach the counter, hoping not to startle the woodworker, but her eyelids lift slowly to meet your gaze, then wrinkle into a warm smile. The piece in her hands is mostly unfinished, but you can see the start of another unique creation coming to fruition there, as though the nutcracker is emerging from the raw wood. When you ask about the little green nutcracker, the maker's eyes light up. It's one of her personal favorites, she says, pulling out her wand and summoning it down from its hook. She wraps it in brown paper, ties the small package in green ribbons, and hands it to you, bidding you take good care of the green man. You thank her, tuck the package into the pocket of your cloak, and depart. You can't stop smiling. You hope Brahm's mother will find the gift as enchanting as you do. A crowd is gathering now around the base of the great spruce tree. You and Brahm angle to get a good spot where you can see the whole tree without craning your neck. The giant arbor is decorated with red and silver baubles, bows, and candy canes. All around, bright colors shine through the approaching darkness. Voices ring clear and strong, and a shiver of anticipation strings all souls together like one grand musical instrument, waiting to ring out one silver note on the night air. It's such a feeling as can only be felt this time of year. A collective in-breath, a quiet expectancy, a quivering hopefulness, even on the darkest of nights. The hour is approaching now, and you wait with bated breath for the tree to be lit. You've never witnessed this spectacle yourself, though Brahm has told you many times that it's the most magical thing he's ever seen. The anticipation mounts as excited voices carry throughout the crowds. Brahm checks his watch. Only minutes to go. As the seconds tick by, you scan the crowd, taking in the cheery, rosy faces of everyone around you, all waiting for the same thing, the same moment, all waiting to be amazed. It's only been a few years since your initiation, into this secret, magical world, a mere moment in time, really. But it feels somehow as though you've always been a part of this community, or rather, that it's always been a part of you. Like you and the world of magic were only waiting to find each other, always just one step out of sync. Now you feel attuned to the magic, inextricably bound to it. It flows through you in every moment, infuses your every choice. And here, among so many others, many who must have felt just as you did the first time they witnessed the miraculous, it feels stronger than ever, as though your magic reaches out to grasp others, creating a powerful ritual connection even among strangers. It's almost time. A voice rings out from somewhere unseen among the throng, counting down from 10, 10, 9. Another voice joins in, and then another, 8, 7, and more voices, 6, more voices still, and more until the whole circle speaks in one strong, unified voice. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And for just a moment, the square goes entirely dark. A hush falls over Surrey Alley, and it's briefly so silent, so dark, you can't believe it. It's like a dream. And then, with a burst of color and light and sound, it begins. The sparking of golden flames dancing like ribbons or wisps of smoke from the base of the tree, circling it in spirals all around. At first, it appears only abstract, just an enchanted flame climbing the tree, and yet not even singeing its needles. But as it circles the tree once more, activating the twinkling lights it passes one by one, you catch a glimpse of the form within the formlessness. There, flickering in and out of visibility, with a long tail whipping behind it, is a magnificent bird made of fire. On its trail echoes a note of song so bright and beautiful, it softens your heart and brings tears to your eyes. The tree springs to life beneath it, the baubles catching the light of the flame and sparkling like stars. The bird ascends higher and higher around the great spruce, ringing out its joyful song. Oh, that song. It's like the taste of the mystery potion, spiced and sweet, hopeful and nostalgic, evocative and elegiac, all at once. And at last, climbing higher into the night sky, the bird, the flame-tailed phoenix, comes to rest at the very pinnacle of the tree. Its wings flutter and rustle, then settle into stillness, its tail relaxing. And there it burns. The boughs of the tree catch not the flames, but glow greenish gold under its constant flicker. And then there is an eruption of sound, cheers and shouts from the crowd. You clap your hands together with an unexpected ferocity, whistling your approval. Laughter, cries of merriment, and a milling and a mumbling and a marveling. Slowly the celebration diminishes, and the sizzle of sausages on the grill can once again be heard above the din. The crowds resume their shopping. The phoenix burns on above the square, little snowflakes dancing in the glow of its flame. A halo of warmth remains in the wake of the ceremony, even as the crowds disperse, and a heaving sense of denouement settles over you. The anticipation past, you feel your muscles relax and your mind soften. Now you feel a glowing tiredness and a longing to rest. Brahm agrees, and the two of you slip down a side street. There's a station at the end where you can pay a penny each way to travel anywhere in the magical network of mirrors. Coming down from all the excitement, giddy with exhaustion, you pay your fares and step through a narrow mirror, one at a time, right into the den of Brahm's family home. Before the room even materializes before you, you hear an exclamation of delight from a familiar voice. Then several more join in. It's Brahm's mother who cries out first, and she runs to embrace you both as your feet fall upon the rug. There's a roaring fire in the hearth, and Brahm's whole family is here. Some lounge in armchairs by the fire or stretch out on the floor. There's a small but richly decorated Christmas tree in the corner, surrounded by a pile of gifts wrapped in brightly colored paper and tied up with red ribbons. It feels like home, like childhood, like magic, being surrounded by so much love and gratitude. You're happy to take off your heavy cloak and sit before the fire. You can feel your icy nose and fingers defrost in its radiant warmth. Soon there's tea and a heap of cookies on the coffee table, and there's music playing lightly under the cheerful conversation. Brahm tells everyone about the tree lighting. The best one yet, he insists, a rosy glow in his cheeks. Someone starts describing a cherished Christmas memory, and soon everyone is chiming in with jokes and stories from Christmases past. Brahm's father is eyeing the pile of presents clandestinely and even sneaks away from the table to shake one by his ear. Brahm's mother, with a knowing look in her eyes, suggests everyone should open one gift tonight, to delighted surprise from her children. There's laughter and glee as everyone makes for the pile, retrieving a gift with their name on the tag. Your stomach fills with butterflies as you see Brahm's mother take the tiny package wrapped in brown paper. You do hope she likes it. You watch as she unties the ribbon and removes the green-clad nutcracker. She looks up at you with glossy eyes and pulls you into a firm embrace. She doesn't say anything, but crosses to the tree and hangs the ornament from a prominent branch. Then she squeezes your hand. It seems for a moment that you can see in her eyes the same bright and moved expression as you noticed in the woodworkers when you selected the gift. It gives you some pause. The gift exchange continues until there's a clutter of wrapping paper strewn across the floor and a satisfied gleam on every face. Brahm's brothers wave their wands to clean up the debris. The music plays, and the fire continues to burn. You feel flush with warmth and pleasure. You can see light snow falling outside the window. It strikes you that this, more than any spell or potion or charm, is true magic. The delicate yet resilient ties that bind people together as family, blood or chosen. The memories and private myths that spring from closeness over time. A tapestry of sentiment, the warp and weft of which creates something bigger than any one person or any group of people. And at this time of year, with darkness creeping in at the corners, these shining threads are more important than ever. After a time, family members start heading up the creaky stairs to bed. You're one of the last left in the den, feeling yourself swoon with sleepiness near the fire. At last, you too climb the stairs to the room made up for you. Your eyelids droop as you climb, and you waste no time collapsing into the soft pillows on your bed. Your head swims in and out of consciousness, then surrenders to sleep. You dream that you're flying through the night over snow-sugared rooftops and smoking chimneys, unfazed by winter's icy bite. Behind you stretches a long, fiery tail, and in the flames are the images and shapes of all the Christmases you've lived, and all the Christmases that ever were. You soar, surging, spurred on by the strength of the magic that abounds in quiet places, on modest boughs, and in the eyes and hands of loved ones. You shine on. How swiftly the days pass now. It seems the sun itself oversleeps, rising weary and bleary-eyed through wandering clouds. Lazily it yawns through the skies, hazy gold, and breathing effortless warmth over the night's frosts. And once risen, its time in the skies is brief. As soon as it opens its eyes across the land, it begins to close them once more, moving in a great and sleepy arc over the mountains and the lake. Some days when it's quiet and you're alone on the grounds, you see the sun as the great crown of an aged king whose body, shadowy beneath those rays, is slowly settling down to sleep. The sun has given so much this year, tirelessly adhering to its predestined cycles. Now it lays down, surrenders to the sweep of the longest night, its most regenerative time of rest. That such a quiet, dark, and restorative time should be the backdrop of the year's most extravagant celebrations is attention never lost on you. The instinct each year is to withdraw, moving not only into the warmth of the indoors, but also within yourself. Winter, and especially the days closest to the winter solstice, are a natural time to engage in the quieter things, self-reflection and study. So it feels surreal now to be laying out your formal wear for tonight's Yuletide gala, one of the year's most anticipated events at the School of Sorcery. And yet, on the other hand, what better time is there than the darkest days of winter for generating a spark of light, for lighting fires to keep alive the hope of rebirth in the new year? The sleepy descending sun is brushing your shoulders through the window now on its way behind the Emerald Mountains. A shard of sunlight glitters on the dark surface of the lake, which surges slightly under a low wind. There hasn't been a snow yet this season, but there's something in the air, a subtle kind of electricity or tautness to it that makes you think tonight could be the night. It's with this in mind that you opt for an extra layer as you change into your festive garments. Before leaving the dormitory, you glance back at the relatively dull-looking chamber and its half-dozen four-poster beds. You withdraw your wand, think for a moment, and give it a wave. At once, garlands of evergreen twine their way around the bedposts, and twinkle lights line the windows. You've just mastered this kind of minimal conjuring magic in Intro to Thaumaturgy. It will be a nice little surprise, you think, for your bunkmates when they return from the party. With that, you leave the dormitory a little brighter than you found it and venture down the steps to a lively common room where dozens of students, clad in formal evening wear, are passing the time before the start of the festival. There's a fire going in the grand fireplace, and someone is passing around homemade chocolate broomsticks for the occasion. You take one from the box, intrigued, then spot your two best friends, Brom and Violet, seated in wing-backed armchairs by the fire and engaged in conversation. You move through the small crowd to join them. I wouldn't eat that, Brom says, indicating the chocolate broomstick. Why not? You ask, surprised. Violet chimes in. Wesley made it for his kitchen witchcraft final, so there's a 50% chance you end the evening floating a few inches off the ground, and an equal chance you break out in spots, Brom finishes. Deciding you'd rather not take the chance, you deposit the chocolate candy on a nearby table. Besides, says Violet, there's bound to be mountains of sweets at the party, don't you think? The last wink of the sun disappears through the narrow, stained glass windows of the common room, turning the atmosphere instantly cozier and more electric. Excitement is building. Your friends, indeed everyone here, looks absolutely splendid tonight. You spend so much of the year in stuffy school uniforms that it doesn't take much to completely change your appearance. But you get the distinct sense that most students are taking great pleasure in the act of dressing up. It brings that much more enchantment to the night. When the hour rolls around, you hang back with your friends as most of the students clamber out of the common room and head down to the party. You'd agreed to do your gift exchange this year at school rather than sending presents all over the world during the term break. For Violet, you've got a beautiful new spell journal for writing her own rituals, and the book responds by offering feedback on the intended results. For Brom, a new set of dice for his role-playing games, each inlaid with real dragon scales. Knowing you've taken an interest this year in magical creatures, Violet gives you an interactive map of the countryside with ever-changing information on where to find supernatural creatures. Brahm, transcending expectations, gives each of you a house plant, perplexing at first until he explains that when it flowers, the blooms can be used to enhance the effects of any potion. After thank yous and an emotional group hug, you're finally ready to go down together to the feasting hall. You descend the spiral staircases of the cavernous old castle. The winking portraits on the walls have done themselves up in festive attire and holiday decorations too. Everyone is getting into the spirit of the season, it seems. There's a constant trickle of students from the upper floors, all headed in the same direction Music floats from the lower level, a string quartet by the sound of it, sweet notes and harmonies climbing the corridors. Ah, and along with it, the glorious scents of winter spices and citrus. A feast surely awaits. Down in the entrance hall, a large crowd of students and teachers gather before the still closed doors of the feasting chamber. Trays of hors d'oeuvres float by. You're trying to save your appetite for what you know will be an extravagant supper, but you can't resist a few of the charming canapes. There's time to find many of your classmates and admire their dresses and robes. How marvelous and joyful everyone looks. Within a few days, most students will head back home to be with their families for a few weeks before the start of the next term. So you have a mind to soak in this social time with your friends before parting. Exams are finished. Final projects have been handed in, and the atmosphere simply buzzes with pent-up energy. So, when the doors to the feasting hall at last swing open, the oohs and ahs escape like long-held sighs. After the wave of mouth-watering aroma comes the revelation of the spectacle. The school's staff have clearly held nothing back in decorating the hall for tonight's festivities. At the far end of the Gothic chamber stands a towering fir tree, almost tall enough to graze the vaulted ceilings. It is lit with countless glowing golden bulbs and hung with glittering crimson, silver, gold, and green baubles and bows. Atop it is a star that might as well have been lassoed from the heavens, for it shines with such natural brightness. Long tables are dressed with white cloths and wine-red runners, with natural greenery for decoration. The centerpieces, placed at intervals, are exquisite ice sculptures. You spot an icy dragon atop a hoard of treasure, a frosty tableau of fairies mid-dance, bouquets of ice-carved roses, and more. And above the hall, beneath the high ceilings, float sage green candlesticks scented with bayberry that washes over you, burning but never melting. The teachers take their places at the table at the head of the hall, and ushers direct the students to places at the long dinner tables. You manage to find seats with your two closest friends opposite an ice sculpture replica of the school itself, with towers and ramparts rendered splendidly in the chilly medium. China plates hand-painted with decorative holly and scarlet cardinals rest on golden chargers, and the service gleams beneath the thousands of candles. The sound of chimes ring out across the hall, slowly bringing the cacophony of conversation to a low murmur, and then silence. The head teacher, resplendent in a white dress and red fur-trimmed cloak, holds a crystal glass in the air, which she's been gently tapping. All heads turn her way. She smiles and speaks. Blessings, my friends, for this Yuletide season, she says. In the interest of beginning our celebrations as swiftly as possible, I'll keep my remarks brief. I only wish to say this, that the winter solstice is a time of pause, a time almost outside of time. Here, poised in the darkness of the longest night of the year, we have choices to make about who we will be on the other side. After tonight, the days get longer. The sun lingers later in the sky with each passing day, and we move once again toward the abiding light. What do you wish to shine a light on in the coming year? And what do you wish to nourish in this time of sacred darkness? Her words sparkle in the echoey quiet of the hall, like flakes of snow just about to melt. You feel a slight tightness in your skin, a climbing of tingly goosebumps from your arms to your scalp. You hold the words in your head, where they tumble and rearrange, questioning. And then, after a moment, the head teacher concludes. Just something to think about. And she claps her hands once, sharp and clear. At the sound, all at once across the hall the tables light up with the appearance of platters and platefuls of food. This to gasps and exclamations of delight, for the food is sumptuous and abundant, from holiday roasts to peerless puddings topped with holly and oranges. Your goblets fill with spiced drinks. It's a feast so delectable, it's almost too much to be believed. You load your plates, laughing and reminiscing on the year's highlights, and eat and drink to your heart's desire. When supper is through, and the sleepiness of satisfaction settles over the hall, the head teacher stands once more, uttering an acknowledgement for the kitchen staff and cooks who've truly outdone themselves this year. A hearty round of applause erupts in reply. And I think, says the head teacher, this means the real party can finally begin. She claps her hands once more, and the empty platters, bowls, goblets, and centerpieces vanish from the tables. The tablecloths, runners, and garlands dissolve into sparkling air, and then the tables themselves evaporate. The whole of the feasting hall glitters as it resets, turning itself over into the floor plan of a spectacular ballroom. Round, high-top tables take the place of the long ones, each topped with revolving seasonal floral arrangements. The staff table remains in place at the head of the hall, but its ice sculpture centerpieces disappear, replaced by a single formidable log topped with burning tapers, pine cones, dried citrus fruits, and greenery. You know this to be a Yule log, a long-held tradition of burning a special log at the winter solstice as a reminder on the longest night of the imminent return of the sun. The rest of the hall is open and clear, delineating a dance floor, though actually motivating students to begin the dancing is another story. There's a good bit of nervous shuffling and whispering as the music strikes up. It's a pair of teachers who first take to the floor to kick off the waltz. Soon enough, pair by pair, students couple up and begin to revolve like twirling snowflakes on the dance floor. Some are impressively and unexpectedly skilled, coming out of their shell. Others fighting 2 left feet. But there are smiles all around. The celebration really gets going when the string quartet is eschewed in favor of one of the magical world's most popular rock groups. All pretense of formality falls away as students crowd onto the dance floor, moving and shaking with the music. There's something so freeing about letting your inhibitions fall away, simply surrendering to the rhythm and joy of the moment. You can feel acutely the sense of relief at the completion of all your term exams. For this beautiful moment, you feel entirely free of stress or obligation. The only thing you have to do right now is dance and enjoy this time with your friends and classmates. The evening passes with great elation. Now and then you take breaks from the dancing to join Violet and Brom around a table where you sip on punch and watch the festivity unfold. There's something very charming about watching your teachers let their hair down as well as the students. The airy, perfumed Madame Cassandra, who teaches divination at the school, sways dreamily in a corner, and the often straight-laced Professor Lovage dances with exuberance of which you hadn't thought them capable. In these passing moments of quiet, between bursts of dancing, you return in your mind to the head teacher's words at the start of the feast, her encouragement to consider who you'll be in the new year, how you'll nourish those parts of yourself in the season of darkness. You don't yet know the answers to these ambiguous questions, but they seem to be within your grasp, swimming in the darkest recesses of your mind. Your energy waxes and wanes with the music. You return to the dance floor for a time, then retreat to the corners to quietly observe. In a way, this too is a dance, a solstice, the ebb and flow of involvement and withdrawal. Late in the night, you and Violet walk around the perimeter of the hall, glasses of punch in hand, observing the stunning decorations. You gaze up at the massive fir tree and its shining ornaments. There's a rustle of movement in the tree's deep green boughs. You nudge Violet to call her attention to it. Then, with a flash of twinkle lights, something pops out between the needles. A tiny, pinched face. The creature, miniature and winged, pulls a face at you, sticking out a bright red tongue, then disappears back into the depths of the tree. You can't help but burst into laughter. But a moment later, the school's caretaker emerges from the other side of the tree, waving a broomstick over his head. "Get out of there, you," he snarls at the creature hiding in the tree. His tone and attention suggest that there must be more than one. He mumbles, just loud enough for you to hear him say, "No one ever checks for pixie infestation before putting up the tree, do they?" "Oh, come on," says Violet, giggling. "Can't you let the pixies enjoy the party too?" The caretaker sets down the broom, grumbling, and disappears again behind the great fir tree's girth. You and Violet succumb to more rounds of laughter. A slower song is playing now, and Brahm finds the two of you. His hair is disheveled, bow tie crooked, and breathing heavy from ecstatic dancing. Now that the three of you are all together again, and the party seems to be in the early stages of winding down, you propose a little getaway to your friends. You wonder if they'd be willing to join you for a wintry walk on the grounds. No one objects to the idea of some fresh air. So together you slip out of the feasting hall, past a gaggle of students loitering in the entrance, and out onto the quiet slopes of the castle grounds. The air is brisk and welcoming after the flush of dancing, spiced punch, and heavy feasting. Violet, who's remarkably skilled at conjuring, gives her wand a wave and brings forth a tiny ball of flame, which hovers a few feet before you, giving off a pleasant, tickling warmth. It maintains its position as you walk, providing ample comfort for your chilly stroll. The night is cloudy, but a near full moon smiles down unimpeded. Through the pointed arch windows of the castle, an interplay of light and movement suggests the continuation of the party. But at this distance, it's a serene and abstract view. Far off between the mountains, the lake's surface is black, glittering with the reflection of the moon and stars, like so many diamonds on the water. This, you think, feels like the winter solstice, a pause, a collectively held breath before the world begins to turn again. You are outside of time, suspended in this space between. Together, the path warm and illuminated by your floating ball of light, you walk down the hillside toward the ancient circle of standing stones, the monument that marked this place of magic centuries before the legendary sorcerer Merlin laid the castle's first stone. Down below, the forest stretches out in tender blackness, a confluence of bare, deciduous trees and flourishing pines and spruces. Silver foliage stands out against the darkness, shimmering in the moonlight. Look, says Violet, stopping in place, her face upturned toward the moon. The clouds, she says. You and Brahm look up to the sky, where indeed the clouds are remarkable. Where before they were streaky and thin, now thick, billowing clouds roll in, pluming and expanding gracefully across the moon. The effect is altogether mesmerizing as the clouds swell with shades and layers of gray, and with such swiftness. The three of you find your gazes locked on the spectacle, the unfolding of vapor away above the lake and mountains. And perhaps it's only your state of mind, the spell of the solstice, the sense of hanging on the edge of time between the spokes of the wheel of the year. But it seems to you that otherworldly shapes are forming in those clouds. They shift and shatter, merging and reforming before your eyes into cloaked and starry figures, bearing lanterns and shields, and riding atop great stallions. Indeed, you can almost hear, above the gentle breeze and rustle of the trees in the forest, the thundering rhythm of the hooves. It's as if a great procession, an ethereal pageant, is journeying now across the sky. You watch, enwrapped, as the clouds expand and contract, revealing the shades of a mounted party. A shiver of excitement runs down your spine. The air feels alive here within the circle of stones. And then, in the empty, dark spaces of night, between the clouds and the rocky hillside, something changes, as if a great sigh is released, and twirling in the black, bouncing on the wind, Down come the first snow flurries you've seen all year. Those spectral horses thunder on between the snowflakes, as if briefly passing through the shimmering curtain between your worlds and back again. It all unfolds in what might only be moments, but it seems as if you're frozen on the spot for many hours, watching. The snowflakes pass dizzily through the light of your enchanted bauble, melting in thin air from its heat, so that this space between the standing stones remains untouched by the kiss of snow, while powder accumulates elsewise all around. Only a small dusting, of course, which will likely dwindle before morning, but to be, perhaps, the only ones to witness its arrival feels exhilarant. In time, as your breath becomes more visible on the air and the chill sinks in despite the glowing ball's efforts, you and your friends decide to make your way back up to the castle. As you pass through the entrance hall toward the grand staircase, you glance into the feasting chamber where the revels have died down considerably. Only a few pairs still sway slowly on the dance floor, and the music, muted, lilts in what's almost a lullaby. The warm air inside the castle induces a pleasant tranquility after your invigorating walk. With only light conversation, you, Brom, and Violet make your way up the staircases toward the dormitory, ready to turn in for the night. When you arrive in the common room, though, it's clear that the evening isn't over for everyone. There's a festive, yet subdued atmosphere about the place, and a tinkle of music greets you upon entry. The fire still roars in the grand fireplace, and students sip on hot drinks while draped over the furniture or perched on cushions by the hearth. Wendell Price, whom you know to be on the shy side, is seated at the dusty old piano in the corner of the chamber. You can't remember ever hearing it played before, but it sounds to be remarkably in tune. And to think such a musical talent could come from such an unexpected classmate. He plays a few familiar notes, and slowly a few voices chime in to sing a well-known carol. It's delightfully cozy and welcoming, and all thoughts of going straight up to bed instantly leave your mind. You find a seat by the fire, your friends joining you, and listen to the melodies wind their way across the room. There are songs you know, classic Yuletide carols you could hum in your sleep. To these you heartily sing along, And there are others you haven't heard before, carols that surely originated in the magical world, songs about Christmas trees bewitched to come alive for one night, songs about magical creatures like griffins and selkies, celebrating Yule in their domains of sea and sky. These amuse you to no end, even as they come naturally and unremarked upon to the lips of your friends who grew up around wizards and witches. You feel very much at home in this company. Anything that might once have held a distance between you and your housemates now melts away in the light of the fire. Tonight, you've danced and sung together, feasted at the same table, and celebrated under the same stars. Not all families are born. As the hour grows late, students split off bit by bit from the gathering of wassail singers. Soon enough, you too are overcome by the desire for sleep, the last part of you that longs to remain in this eerie, suspended time state of solstice succumbs, and you climb the stairs to your dormitory. You smile when you see the garlands and lights that adorn the beds and windows. In all tonight's revelry, you'd forgotten all about it. You change into comfortable pajamas, tossing your formal wear aside. Tenderly, you climb into your four-poster bed and draw the canopy curtains closed, shrouding yourself in darkness. Well, just a slice of light peeks through the gaps, a reminder of the return of the sun and the enduring nature of light, even on the longest night of the year. You surrender to sleep with the distant melodies of a once unfamiliar song drifting through your head. In your dreams, you ride on the back of a great galloping horse made of clouds and snow and starlight. You're not alone. All around you are a dozen or more riders, their voices proud and full of song. Your friends, your family. Together, you make your celestial sojourn across the night. The sun, lazy still, cannot catch you. The door to the oven opens, sending a warm and aromatic wave across the room to flush your cheeks. Your grandmother, with her gingham oven mitts, pulls two baking sheets from the hot oven and fans them to start cooling them down. Oh, and the smell is simply heavenly. There's ginger, of course, at the head of it all, but the warm, malty molasses brings sweetness to the spice. Cinnamon, allspice, and clove waltz with the uplifting vanilla. It's true what they say, that scent can unlock memories better than any other sense. As you inhale, pictures dance through your mind, the faces of family and loved ones, snuggly evenings by the fire, warm bubble baths after hours playing in the cold snow. To you, nothing says home like fresh baked gingerbread. The days are getting much shorter. It's hardly 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and already it seems that night is nipping at your heels. Outside the kitchen window, the sun is making its final descent in the sky, casting pink and orange swirls across the sky like sherbet, the fluffy clouds like dollops of whipped cream. It looks good enough to eat, you think. It's a tradition in your family to bake and build a gingerbread house together, all from scratch. You've always been strictly on decoration, spreading the icing, sticking on the gumdrops. But this year, for the first time, your grandmother brought you into the kitchen while she whipped up the cookie dough. You watched her cream the butter and brown sugar. She even let you pour in the molasses, which was mesmerizing to watch as it pooled in ribbons in the bowl. You tried to take notes in your head of the proper ratio of spices and the perfect time to add the secret ingredient, finely minced, crystallized ginger. But grandmother laughed as she observed your look of keen concentration. There was no need, she insisted, to think so hard about it. She's been making this recipe for so long, it comes naturally to her. But not to worry. Everything's written down on a recipe card she'll give to you. And besides, she assured you, while it's necessary to master certain techniques and to get particular ingredients in the exact right amount, no recipe is truly great without an opportunity to improvise, to put a little of your own creativity into the baking. Gingerbread is equal parts science and art, she said, tapping her forehead with a playful grin. She followed this with a whispered encouragement to lick the spoon, if you like. Together, you rolled out the dough thin and cut it into precise rectangles and triangles, perfect for assembling a strong gingerbread house. Once it comes out of the oven, it's clear to you that the baking was a success. The gingerbread settles and cools on the counter as your grandmother guides you in whipping up a royal icing. Then, with armfuls of gumdrops, marshmallows, and starlight mints, you follow her to the kitchen table where your young cousins are giddy with excitement to begin the assembly. Constructing the house out of gingerbread so that it stands up and all the pieces fit together, that is science. But everything else is art. how to pipe the icing on the roof to look most like shingles or blankets of snow, where to place the little decorative candies for the most dramatic flair. Dozens of tiny fingers reach for chocolate kisses and marshmallows, some of which actually make it onto the gingerbread house, the rest of which disappear surreptitiously into little bellies. Of course, there are good-natured arguments among the cousins as to how the house should look, but in the end, everyone has a chance to make their mark. It may be rustic in its construction and extravagant in its decoration, but this little cookie cottage could not look more inviting, you decide. And it's even more special for the myriad efforts of the family and the pride in all faces round the table. A simmer pot on the stove fills the house with the cozy aroma of warm sage, bright cranberries and oranges, and spicy ginger and cinnamon. Hot cocoa warms in the crock pot, and a mulled cider besides. These are ladled into mugs and placed in hands as a fire is made in the hearth. The family gathers beside the fire, which crackles and sparks in a gentle lullaby. From your cushion, wrapped in a flannel blanket and clutching your steaming mug, you can see the gingerbread house exalted upon the table with the moonlight falling over it from the window. In this light, even in all its childlike adornment, it might be a real cottage at the end of a storybook lane, a sweet, welcoming home for wanderers in the snow. With hot drinks on your lips and the fire murmuring beneath a wisp of festive music, someone shares a family memory from many years ago. The story, oft told at gatherings like this, is so well known that even the youngest among you could recount it. And yet, it never grows old or tiresome. It brings a well of joy to your heart and smiles to all the rosy faces around the fire. Soon, this single story opens the doors to countless reminiscences, recollections of family legends, remembrances of loved ones who aren't present tonight, and celebrations of those new friends, partners, and children who have come into the family in recent years. Stories of the places sacred to your family, the old houses which, though the faucets leaked and the bedrooms were drafty, held such profound meaning and memory to those who lived and visited there. The favorite parks and playgrounds where you learned to ride bikes without training wheels. The gardens where you searched for gnomes and left gifts for the fairies. There is a secret language shared by every close-knit family, a labyrinth of symbols and signals that bind you together, weaving a mythology out of memories. You feel immeasurably safe here, surrounded by people who know your truest self and love you even more for it. Your eyelids sink and your body settles into a fuzzy, natural warmth. You could drift off to sleep right here, you think, on the hearthrug, and be perfectly happy. As the fire dies down in the fireplace and stars begin their twinkling dance outside the frosty window panes, the evening comes to a natural close. Your grandmother covers the gingerbread house with a glass dessert dome, under which it resembles a fairy tale cottage in a snow globe. Along with your cousins, you slowly make your way upstairs, where each of you performs your personal bedtime ritual. The littlest among you are tucked in with bedtime stories, lullabies, and kisses. You sink into the plush blankets, still feeling the pleasant, golden spell of comfort wash over you. The moon shines in delicately through a small gap in your curtains, falling like spun silk across the bed. In the final moments of wakefulness, as your eyes fall closed, you picture the gingerbread house that now sits in the peace of an empty downstairs, with glittering snow globe flurries accumulating on its frosted rooftop. You slide into tranquil dreams of sparkling brooks through snowy forests. The sky is still dark when you find yourself stirring. This you can tell with a glance at the sheer curtains. But something in the quality of light has shifted. There's a silvery edge to it. You wonder at first if you've awoken just before dawn. You roll over in bed, settling into the warmest parts of the mattress and pulling the covers up to your chin. You close your eyes, hopeful that sleep will once again overtake you. But behind your eyelids, the allure of that silvery light spirals, beckoning. Your curiosity rouses, overruling your body's will to slide back into sleep. So you open your eyes once more and rise slowly from the bed. Parting the curtains, you discover the cause of the light's otherworldly shimmer. Your eyes brighten. Snow is falling. Indeed, it must have begun some hours ago, for the street outside your window is already blanketed with a few inches of powdery snow, piling in irregular slopes and drifts. The flakes fall in twirling clumps from the darkness of sky. Moonbeams slice through fluffy gray clouds to turn the landscape silver and opalescent. It's been some time since you saw a snow like this, And at this hour, with the street vacant, it's achingly picturesque. Powder tops the streetlights, and flurries dance through yellow beams. It's a transfixing sight. The whole neighborhood suspended in time and snow, crystallized and peaceful under a muted moon. How soft and undisturbed looks the snow. How satisfying might it be to be the first to let your feet fall through it, letting it collapse and crunch beneath your boots. You can hardly wait for morning when all your cousins will be awake and eager to throw snowballs and build little people out of snow. But for now, there's something magical about knowing you're the only one who sees this pristine spectacle. It's all delightfully yours, carrying a spark of joy tempered by the warmth of extraordinary peace. You release a long exhale, dropping your shoulders and letting your face relax into a dreamy smile. You're ready to climb back into bed and shuffle back into the serene dream state from which you've just emerged. But as you turn from the window, you could swear there comes a warm light, one that's distinct from the street lamps, and a sound, too. A sound so specific and evocative that it's hard to believe you could have heard such a thing. But yes, there it is again, ringing in the night. The lively, rhythmic, percussive sound of jingle bells. Drawing the curtain aside once more, you watch a few final flakes of snow fall in the pools of light before the snowfall ceases and all is at once impossibly still. And now, in the absence of flurries, you can see clearly the houses on the other side of the quiet street. At first, they appear normal, simply coated in a layer of frosty powder. But then a little gasp rises to your throat. These are not the aging, quirky Victorian houses you recognize. At least, not exactly. If you're not mistaken, every building on the block, instead of stucco or siding or brick, is made of gingerbread. The whole neighborhood transformed into a festive, romantic wonderland. It's this realization that makes it near impossible to climb back beneath the covers now. A miracle like this is something that must be explored. You dash to your closet and pull down a thick fleece robe. You slide your feet into a pair of fuzzy slippers and tie the robe closed. It takes a good deal of restraint of your excitement to tiptoe down the stairs instead of thundering downward. The lower level of the house is quiet. You catch a glimpse of the gingerbread house under its glass dome just as you pull the front door closed behind you with the smallest of creaks. The cold night air greets you, instantly making your cheeks flush. Your breath forms swirling clouds before you. But underneath the woolly robe and flannel pajamas, and with your feet snug in your slippers, you are warm. You step out into the night. Strung across the street in rows are countless golden fairy lights which gently illuminate the scenic walk. You marvel at the stately homes lining the road, each a magnificent confection. Gingerbread bungalows dusted with powdery snow, their sugar pane windows glowing from within, gumdrops lining the eaves. And each is more decadent, it seems, than the last. You imagine that within the houses, gingerbread families huddle together, telling their own most cherished stories. You stroll enthralled down the lane. By the light of day, you know it to end in a cul-de-sac several houses down. But now, under the glistening moon, it seems to stretch on for miles before you, with more colorful lights diffusing from the distance. All around, the sound of bells seem to ride the delicate breeze. Soon, the gingerbread cottages give way to larger, more elaborate buildings, what seem to be gingerbread libraries, gingerbread businesses, shops, and schools. The air begins to fill with the sweet overtones of music and a lively atmosphere. If you're not mistaken, there are voices on the breeze, singing, laughing, and conversing in the night. You're approaching a brightly lit crossroads, all abuzz with activity. As you come closer, it appears to be a bustling village square. Your eyes drink in the myriad sights and wonders that materialize there. At the center, there revolves a magnificent carousel with glittering lights and jumping horses and reindeer. The frame, of course, is gingerbread, but the structure is held up by beams of striped peppermint candy. Towering over it is the impressive form of a great tree, which, under usual circumstances, would boast evergreen tresses. But here, its familiar silhouette is shaped by profiteroles and pinwheel cookies, adorned with bright mints and candy baubles. Lining the square are gingerbread stalls from which swirl the scents of roasting chestnuts, hot cocoa, and other seasonal delights. But what truly lights up your eyes, more than the decadent towers and structures of suites, are the people riding the carousel, gazing up at the tree and milling about the square. There are dozens of them, and every single one, like you, shuffling about in slippers and pajamas, wrapped in bathrobes and housecoats. It's as if each of you independently rose to the sound of sleigh bells and wandered out into the snow. It's a veritable playground for the sleepless and bright-eyed. You make your way around the market stalls, admiring the sugary icicles that cling to their rooftops and the handmade gifts and mouth-watering sweets they peddle. You come to a stall selling beautiful, intricate snow globes. These sparkle under the fairy lights like 1,000 little diamonds. Their bases are crusted around with peppermints and caramels. Each depicts a wintry scene, festive trees, snowmen, nutcrackers, and more. You inch closer to the displays, standing on tiptoes to get a good look at the beautiful tableaus. Your eyes widen to see one that's quite familiar. Beneath the curved glass dome, a gaggle of children and family members gather around a kitchen table, assembling a rustic gingerbread house. How the artist has managed to create such lifelike, joy-filled little faces and expressions in such small figures is simply marvelous to you. And there, under glittery flecks of swirling snow, is one bright face that quite resembles yours, as if the memory of this evening, the family coming together to create a gingerbread masterpiece, has been frozen in time and preserved forever. What a beautiful thing. You wish your loved ones were here to share it with you. But perhaps you think you can bring it home to them. There's a kindly looking man behind the counter at the stall. He's busy polishing the glass spheres of his magnificent creations. He peers over at you, transfixed by the uncanny resemblance of this snow globe to your own family. Found one you like, he says, a twinkle in his eye. Yes, you say. This one, it's funny, reminds me of, but you don't finish the thought aloud. Tell you what, says the merchant, it's yours, on the house. Really, you ask, a flush rising to your cheeks. He responds with only a wink. You pull the snow globe down from the display gingerly. It has a pleasant weight in your hands. Then you give it a good shake, and the speckles of sparkling snow rush upward in a dizzying spiral, then come fluttering down upon the scene. The merchant offers to wrap it up for you, to keep it safe. He rolls it in layers of snug brown paper, seals it with tape, then places it in a small green gift bag with ribbon handles. You thank him, still amazed at the gesture of generosity, and go on your way. You wind around the gingerbread carousel, admiring the leaping animals. Here you can see the varnished creatures in exquisite detail. Reindeer embellished with chocolate noses and licorice antlers. Horses with manes of candy floss. Unicorns and narwhals with candy cane horns. And you approach the spectacular tree, that imposing tower of bonbons spun with caramel and speckled with gumdrops and candied hazelnuts. When at last you've made a full circle round the village square, taking in all the honeyed splendor of it, your eyes turn to the darkened road that leads on from the lights. There's something that lies that direction, something that seems to tug at you, urging you to explore. In the hazy glow, you can just make out that the road, covered with snow though it may be, tapers off into a narrow walking path. You can't explain it, but you feel you must follow the path. So, with a final glance back at the wonderful sight of the square, you trudge on through the soft snow. The path does indeed narrow, and it leads directly into the heart of a curious forest. But this forest is not shaded by conifers or deciduous trees. No, instead, what grows here are candy canes, striped round with red, green, and white. The calming scent of peppermint suffuses the air. As you step into the candy cane wood, allowing the bustle of the square and all its music and laughter to fall away, you feel an instantaneous settling of peace. You draw deep breaths which fill your belly and nourish your whole body. Each exhale feels cleansing, as if you are bathing in the cooling, detoxifying aroma of mint. It's as if every pore of your body is breathing in and releasing whatever it is that you no longer need. You step over a little stream that runs through a divot in the snow. Candy fish swim in the icy cold waters. On you go through the forest of candy canes, through thick patches and moonlit glades, feeling as if you're riding on air. In time, the heavy clouds overhead open up, releasing fresh flurries of snow, which gather and clump, falling softly on the already thick blanket upon the ground. The snow accumulates upon the candy cane trees like little hats, and it falls with a barely perceptible plink upon your head and shoulders, more noticeably on your cheeks and nose where it melts. With a sudden impulse, you stop walking and turn your face to the sky, opening your mouth. You can see the snow spiraling downward in irregular patterns through the darkness, picking up the wind or meeting other snowflakes in a loving dance. A few flakes fall upon your outstretched tongue. They are sweet, like powdered sugar. And on you go as the snow picks up, turning the candy cane forest into a sight more picturesque than ever before. The ribbon-handled bag swings gently beside you, and for the first time, you feel a hint of a chill and a twinge of desire for your warm bed in the familiar house. You suppose you should turn back, retrace your steps through the forest and the square. It shouldn't be too hard. Despite the snow falling more thickly, your tracks are still quite visible and deep. But before you are ready to turn around, you glimpse light through the parting candy cane trees. Streetlights, you think? You move forward, thinking you'll be able to get your bearings here before making your way home. Within a few paces, you emerge from the wood onto the roundabout pattern of a cul-de-sac. You look for a street sign to point your way, but it quickly becomes clear that you know exactly where you are. Have you come round in a circle then? This is your street, transformed as it may be by snow, and only a handful of houses down, you should find your own place. You look back at the candy cane forest. Is it only an illusion? Or can you faintly see the glimmer of lights from the festival square through the thicket? The snow is coming down more heavily, and you draw the fleece robe tightly around your shoulders as you wade through the drifts, past the gingerbread cottages and cars. At last, as the snow is piling up to your knees, you reach your front door with relief. For just a moment, you gaze up at the house you know so well, here assembled of your grandmother's spicy sweet gingerbread. adorned with gumdrops, kisses, and peppermints, with a thick icing of snow on the roof and eaves. A house made of memories. Then, shaking the sugary snow from your hair and kicking it from your slippers, you push the front door open and meet a wave of welcome warmth. All is quiet, save for the ticking of the hall clock, a constant metronome. Everyone else is still asleep, your absence as yet unnoticed. Leaving your wet slippers on the mat by the door, you sneak your way up the stairs and into your bedroom, where you dispose of the robe and change into a dry pair of pajamas. You warm your hands by the radiator and find yourself laughing. What a wondrous adventure you've had, and without anyone being the wiser. A ripple of exhaustion moves through you from head to toe, your shoulders slumping and eyelids drooping. Surely you'll be able to slip gently back into sleep. But first, you take one more glance out the window through the parted curtains. Snow is coming down so thickly, it's hard to see much, but you can make out the old Victorian house across the street. Gingerbread, gumdrops, and all. And with a great gaping yawn, you climb back into your bed, sliding between the blankets, grateful for the warmth and comfort of home. Sleep comes on like the first fall of snow, gently, slowly, and then giving way all at once. This sleep is so deep and still, it is dreamless, ultimate peace. You wake to new light streaming through the parted curtains. Sunlight now, you recognize. From the cracked bedroom door, you catch the smell of pancakes and syrup climbing the stairs from the kitchen. Breakfast must be on the skillet. You shuffle down the steps to find the rest of your family already awake and energetic. They greet you with warm choruses of "Here comes the sleepy head," and so on. You must have slept much longer than usual. As you sit down to eat breakfast, with the family's gingerbread house serving as a delightful centerpiece, the previous night's adventure comes back to you in bits and pieces, the way one might remember a particularly strange and wonderful dream. But surely that's all it was, a dream. After breakfast, someone asks if the paper's come yet. You volunteer to step outside and bring it in. You open the front door to a landscape of dazzling white. The morning sun reflects brightly off of undulating drifts and banks of snow. The cars in every driveway are all but obscured, and almost nothing is left uncovered. By the look of the street, no fresh treads or tracks. It's unlikely the papers come, so you don't bother to dig in the snow on the porch for it. But there is something sitting by the door. Your heart leaps when you see it. A small forest green gift bag with ribbons for handles. Can it be? You wonder. You grasp the ribbons and bring the bag inside. Bit soon for gifts, isn't it? Comes your grandmother's voice. Who's that from then? You search for the words. You look to her face, smiling and sweet. The face that holds so many generations worth of memories. The rest of the family is gathered in the sitting room, discussing what to do today with all this snow. There's talk of sledding or of staying in to watch movies. You want to tell your grandmother where you were last night, if indeed you were anywhere but the land of sweet dreams. But instead you just say, "This is for you." And you hand her the bag. With a curious look in her eye, she reaches in and pulls out the tightly wrapped paper package. She removes the tape, revealing the elegant snow globe within. As she turns it over in her hands, you hear her utter the quietest gasp. She looks to you with tears in her eyes. You return a sheepish smile, then rush into her arms for the kind of hug only a cherished loved one can give. The snow settles softly outside, covering the whole world as far as you can see in silent sweetness. The little house rings with laughter and music, the sharing of memories and clink of cups. All the light within is golden, flickering through the sugar pane windows to the outside world. In here, time is suspended, stretched to make space for over-slumbering, leisurely breakfasts, hours of mulling spices, and long evenings by the fire. You are safe in your own little gingerbread house, a house of memories. Though the snow will melt and the family will once again disperse to all corners of the earth, coming back together anew at the same time next year, assuming new shapes and sizes. This moment will carry on, sparkling under glass, forever. As you prepare to drift into a deep and restful sleep, take a moment to create a serene and comforting space in your mind. Begin by taking a deep breath in, filling up your belly with fresh, calming air, and exhale slowly, releasing any tension or stress from your body. Feel the weight of the day lifting off your shoulders with each breath in and out, sinking deeper into your resting surface. Soften the muscles of your face, relaxing your forehead, the space between the eyebrows, the temples, softening the eyelids, unclenching the jaw, and letting the tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Loosen the lips. Let your whole body relax from the crown of the head to the neck and shoulders, the arms, the chest, the back, the belly, the hips, the legs. Just settling down here and breathing naturally, sending the breath to any areas that are still holding tension. Now bring to mind a specific happy memory. It could be a moment shared with loved ones, a personal achievement, or a time when you felt pure joy and peace. Visualize the details, the colors, the faces, the emotions. Do you feel pride, contentment, coziness, love? Visualize the surroundings. What can you see, feel, taste, smell, and hear? Imagine this memory suspended in time, like a scene within a snow globe, with sparkling snow falling all around. How can you bring the joy of this memory into your dreams tonight? And how can you bring this joy into your waking life? How can you spread this same happiness to others? Let the positive energy from this memory envelop you like a warm, comforting blanket. Feel the happiness and peace radiate through your entire being, filling you with a profound sense of contentment. Allow this positive energy to flow through you with your breath, releasing any remaining tension or worry. As you bask in the glow of this joyful memory, imagine a soft light surrounding you, gently guiding you into a state of deep relaxation. As you continue to breathe, carry this sense of tranquility into your dreams, knowing that you are surrounded by warmth, happiness, and the promise of a restful night's sleep. Know that you are capable of feeling profound happiness and of sharing that with others in this life. Carry that light. Be that light. Sweet dreams.